No, don't.
Oh, we'll
It's
stop
fine.
that one.
You know what? Let's just start it that way. I played the wrong theme, but you know what? Golf's like that. Here's the right theme. Just let it record. No one's gonna care. So trust me. Trust me.
We don't edit this thing.
Yeah, exactly. No one's gonna go. Wait a minute. That was not the right beginning.
Good start.
Well, that's what happens sometimes. In the game of golf. It's like that. You think, oh, today's gonna be a great day. Then you just shank one into the weeds. Welcome to Swing Thoughts. Let's get right to it. Brought to you by TaylorMade Golf, Jonathan Wong, Inc. This is sort of the, off-season version. Would record every couple of weeks. There's Coach Tim. Look at you, Tim O'Connor.
Good to see you. Good to see our guest, who we'll
Yes.
introduce in a moment.
Always a pleasure to be with you, Coach. Of course, I'm a golf spiritual leader. Don't forget to pick up a copy of my book, Pathways to Par, if you want to know how to, make more pars. Anyway, speaking of books, this is our guest, a frequent contributor to this program. He's written many books under the umbrella of the Lost Art of Golf now. Please welcome back to our program. I'm not sure how many times he's been on, but it's been enough for us to say, hello, friend. It's Karl Morris. Hello, sir.
Thanks, Howard. Thanks, Tim. Good to be back yet again. I think I've been on this program that many times. I should have sort of associate status or something like that. Now I should be part of the team.
You're certainly friend of show. I platinum level FOS.
Yeah. No, it's good to be back. We always have a good chat.
Just before we hit record, and just before we start talking about golf, Tim mentioned that you had some heart trouble.
Yeah, well, I've not had any heart troubles, but very, very long story short, from having a series of tests, I've never felt fitter and stronger in my life. I was training hard, doing lots of high intensity cardio and weight training and all the stuff that I'd done for years. But I had a Wellman test, a test for guys over 50 years of age. And very long story short, one test led to another. And I ended up 9 months later having a quadruple bypass surgery because they found out there's some, the outside of the car looked okay, but there was a lot of rust going on underneath the bonnet, unfortunately. So
Really?
it was a huge shock to me. I didn't have any angina symptoms or anything like that, but they pretty much said, we need to get you in and operate. And so I had the operation in September, and it's been a tough stretch. Really, I've played a few par fives into wind in the last few weeks, so I'm looking forward to the back nine getting a bit easier when I get downwind.
You're rocking those metaphors today, Karl. Wow.
Yeah, I've trotted that many of them out. Hopefully they still sound original.
Wow. But you know what I find really amazing is, like, as you said, there you are, weight training, doing high intensity cardio, your heart's pumping and all that. And yet, like, that, no doubt that was a big surprise. I guess maybe that's a reminder to us all of a certain vintage to get ourselves checked from time to time.
What was really interesting, Tim, that no expert on this at all, but I became a pseudo expert, obviously, when I started to look into Dr. Google and all the things around it. But what was interesting was what they told me was that a couple of the major arteries had kind of almost blocked up completely. There was 98% blockage. But what the body had done was built some tributaries around it. They'd kind of like created runoffs that were still feeding the heart. So in one sense, that the training that I was doing was probably keeping me alive, because I was forcing the body into its, it had to adapt and create blood flow some way. Which when you get your head around that without any conscious interference on my part, the body was doing whatever the hell it could just to stay alive, which is pretty amazing, really.
Well, it is amazing when you think about your heart was kind of going, well, this guy isn't helping us at all. So we're gonna have to create some new tributaries.
We're going to recruit some new troops here. We're going to get a different coach in and go in a different way. So,
well, what's interesting about this is that, Howard, was it a year or 2 years ago?
2 years ago. Yeah, I had a little heart trouble, but my heart trouble, Carl, was electrical in nature. I had electrophysiology ablation, but I didn't have any. So far, I don't seem to have any pump problems. Let me ask you quickly before we get to the lost art of the short game, which is why you're here. Do you have any? Is there any long-term outlook in terms of your efficacy, your heart? It's all back to normal, or will you always have to worry about it now?
I think it's one of those things that, for something that I'd never worried about in my life, when you find out that this is going on and you didn't know what was going on, it's pretty hard to not think about it.
Yeah, of course.
As much as the sort of medical people can say, "Oh, just get on with things and don't worry about it." It's kind of in the back of your mind. But essentially the surgery went pretty well. There's been a few issues since the surgery that I won't go into all the gory details. There's been some challenges, but what it did reinforce to me, was something that we talked about many times on the show, and what we talked about in one of the books is, the idea of gratitude and the idea of appreciation, and it can sound a trite concept really when you're sort of buzzing through life and you always think there's another round to play and you always think there's another opportunity. And then all of a sudden life goes, oh, I've got a message for you here. Don't assume that you've got another round in you. Don't assume that you've got another season to play. Why don't you really be grateful for what you've actually got today and embrace the fact that you've got an opportunity to play today?
I sense another book coming, The Lost Art of Gratitude.
Yeah. No, we've actually said now that this is it. We're not going to do a Rocky. There's a trilogy. There's a trilogy, and this is it now.
Are you saying that The Lost Art of Fighting that Russian guy isn't coming out?
Yeah, I think Sylvester Stallone said after number 3 there was never going to be any more, didn't he? So who knows what might happen.
So the Lost Art's retired at the zenith of its game, kind of the Bobby Jones thing.
Well, let's talk about it.
If I could just come back just to for a moment, and maybe we can use this as a bridge into the game, is that one of the things that we've talked with you about, Carl, we've talked about many times on this podcast, is the idea of presence, of being in the moment. And when you are in a state of gratitude, you're in the moment. You're not shooting, you're not looking and saying, well, things should be another way, or if only. You're in the moment. And that's one of I think the beautiful things about gratitude is that you can take it to your life, to golf, to all aspects of we're right here right now, and this is okay.
I think one of the biggest mistakes people can make, Tim, with the concepts around gratitude is to dismiss it as being kind of a soft approach to the game, that I want to win and I want to make birdies and I want to get on tour and I want to win major championships and all the rest of it. Well, that's all well and good and fine to have those intentions, but as we all know, if you're going to play this game well, you need to be present to the puzzle that the golf course is setting you right now in this moment, and that simple concept is actually very hard to do when you're constantly thinking that you'll be happy when you win the major, you'll be happy when you get on tour, you'll be happy when you've got enough money, and all of these things that the old John Lennon line of life's what happens while we're busy making plans. And my goodness, it's so true. But gratitude is actually, the more I look at it, is actually a foundational position for peak performance. It's a foundational position for your actual best expression that you are capable of having on a given day. Mm-hmm. But the nice byproduct of it is you're not a miserable so and so before you get what you think you want. And that again, there's so many things I've reflected on this past few months, that the experiences I've been fortunate to have with some players over the years coaching, and you think players are going to be happy when they win big events and they win big tournaments, and you think you're going to be happy as a coach when that happens. But it's very, very easy to miss it, in the sense that the event happens, the outcome happens, and it's literally like a puff of smoke. It appears and then it disappears very quickly. So you start to ask questions. What is actually real? What is something that's going to last a little bit longer than these outcomes that I thought was going to make me happy? And it comes back to what you said, Tim, doesn't it? It comes back to what's going on today, and can I be grateful for it? Can I appreciate what I actually have today? It doesn't mean to say that you're not aiming to improve. It doesn't mean to say that you're not aiming to shoot low scores. But my goodness, it's a miserable place to be when you're constantly somewhere else in your mind, hoping that a future will make you more contented.
Well said, sir. And
Absolutely.
And I'm glad you're healthy. I'm glad you're well. I know it won't be easy, but look at the alternative. You've got to be grateful for the fact that one day, like Norm Macdonald said, if you weren't careful, if you hadn't gone for that test, your heart was going to come up and attack you. And that would have been the end. Let's talk about let's take gratitude and talk about the short game. There's been the lost art of putting, lost art of playing golf, and the lost art of the short game. Karl's latest book. Just remind me who your co-author is again. I don't have it in front of me.
It's a great golf professional, Howard. He's called Gary Nicol, and
Gary Nicol. That's right.
He coaches in a fantastic location, one of the most beautiful locations on earth that I've ever been to, a place called Archerfield in Scotland, in East Lothian, right in between Muirfield and North Berwick.
Wow.
It's Gullen is right by there. It's a real heaven on earth place. I always say to Gary, you need to remind yourself every day when you turn into the drive how lucky you are, because he's often said it's easy to take paradise for granted if you go there every day.
No kidding. It's funny you say that. I just spent 10 days in Venice about a month ago, and every day I got up and I would look across the canal at the city, and I'd think, these people actually get to live here. They get to see this every day, because I would just stand there staring at it. Let's talk about gratitude in the short game, and why is it let's leave gratitude just for a second. I've had this notion, and I see it in a lot of people that I watch. As we get closer to the green, a couple things happen. Our tension level increases, I think, because our expectations erroneously increase. Because we're close to the hole, we think we should be able to hit everything close to the hole. What do you think about that as a concept for something that impedes most people's short game ability?
Yeah, I think what you're talking about there, Howard, is the spectre of expectation, isn't it?
Yes.
That as we get closer to the green, we think you've used the word should, and I think the word should be taken out of every golfer's vocabulary, because there's no such thing as should. I mean, my goodness, you look at it on the PGA Tour. What is it? Once you get out to about 8 feet, even the best players in the world, I think, only make about 50% of putts, don't they? Something 8 to 10 feet, something like. And that's the best players on earth on the best greens on earth, and they only make 50% of those putts. So you look at the expectations that many golfers have, and they're so unrealistic, and a lot of it is fueled by what we see on TV. That we watch golf on TV, and again, we're watching the best players in the world having their best weeks, and the shots that we see are a selected version of the play that day. So, a great believer in when you can look at your expectations and sort of widen it a little bit and become a little bit more realistic about it. It's not being negative. It's actually just getting on with the job at hand. It was interesting. I was talking with a guy the other day, and he was saying that his golf had really improved this year because he had a mindset a little bit more around, instead of believing that he had to make loads of birdies, he was a little bit more of the mindset of just reducing gross errors. So he said, with a chip shot, he was actually prepared to say to himself, if he got it on the green and somewhere within a reasonable distance away from the flag, that was functional, that was okay. He didn't beat himself up quite so much. But he said the paradox was that when he widened the expectation tunnel and he stopped the perfectionism, he actually hit a lot more shots close to the flag, because he wasn't putting himself under so much pressure. You mentioned we feel the pressure and we feel the tension as we get closer to the green. Why is that? The only reason why we do that is because the perception of the task changes. We perceive that the task should be executed to very, very fine margins, when the reality of it is that, even the best players in the world don't do that. So giving yourself a bit of a break as you get closer to the greens has this paradoxical effect of, perception of difficulty changes, and the freedom emerges as a result of that.
One of the things that I find that comes up again around expectation is perception, how we perceive what we're supposed to do. And one of the things that I love about your Lost Art series is that word art, instead of here's a way to do it. And we get so much of that in golf culture, particularly now through social media, YouTube, all these ways on how to do it. And golfers perceive this is what I must do. Mechanically, I need to swing this way and look this way. And I think that one of the things that what your series of books, and particularly this one, as pertains to the short game, is it's more about doing it your way and learning from your own experience. And that's where I think you've really created a nice series of books, is reminding people you don't have to match some kind of model that you see. It's actually your way.
Be prepared to paint your own pictures. You go out there and play around with the idea that maybe for you, if you're playing short shots and you feel like you're putting a little bit of a fade spin on it, if you're playing some short shots and you try and draw it a little bit, we think that only the longer shots is where we can be creative. But as Gary has shown me many times, just by experimenting with it and playing from the same place but playing a few different clubs, creates that opportunity to sort of, that really felt good to me. I felt good playing it that way. And again, I think what it does, it opens up the opportunity, Tim, as you say, to find your way, not so much be told the way. Now, yeah, as we talk about in the book, I think there's some understanding required about how you should potentially use your wedges and what your wedges are designed to do. I think that's a different thing, but how you go about then influencing that design, I think is far more of a personal journey. And all of a sudden, then it becomes, when creativity kicks in, it becomes a little bit more fun to play around with this, rather than just pulling the same club out and just playing the stock shot every time and then getting frustrated if you don't knock it to 3 inches.
Well, one of the things I wanted to follow up with is that Howard and I, we have these discussions every once in a while on this podcast. We have, when the odd time we get to play together, we don't get that many opportunities. Kind of there's a discussion of just that we're talking about your experience and is there ways to hit it the right way? And one of the things I think that a very valuable thing you guys talk about is the role of bounce on the wedge. And what you talk about is, rather than using that, the leading edge is more is what you call surf the turf. Can you just describe to us how you came to kind of maybe understand that concept in your own game and why you think it's valuable for people to get this sense of how to use the bounce?
Isn't that a great phrase? It's not mine, Tim, but surf the turf is a fantastic, evocative picture to paint. And as Gary,
surf the turf versus rip it and take a big,
leading
chunk out of it, where the divot goes further than the ball.
Yeah, even the word chunk, that tells you everything you need to know.
That's right. Surf is such a better word than chunk it into the side of a bunker.
I think first of all, for me, and we talk about this in the book, that the word bounce is probably the silliest word that's ever been attached to equipment ever in the history of the game. Because if you think about it, when people hear the word bounce or interpret the word bounce, they actually very easy to have a perception that the club would bounce. The club would bounce on hard turf. And then when you think, well, if the club bounces, surely I'm going to blade it through the back of the green. But as Gary Nicol has explained to me many times, that the leading edge of the club with your wedges, the leading edge gets you into trouble, the back edge gets you out of trouble. So if you change the term bounce to back edge or leading edge, you then have a completely different approach to it. And the idea being that basically, if you can get the back edge of the club to interact smoothly with the ground, that the golf club is going to collect the ball, and your margin for error is huge. Because when many golfers, I think, who have the yips with the chipping, everybody says that the yips is in the mind, and I firmly believe that most of the yips in chipping actually stems from a poor concept with technique, whereby you'll get a player who gets a very steep angle of attack, and they sort of blade a few shots and chunk a few shots, and what they do is get the ball further and further back in the stance, the hands further and further forward. And now the only thing that you can do is use the leading edge of the club. And it's kind of like the margin for error is so small. But also now your brain's smart, because it works out that you've actually taken so much loft off the club that what the yip is an attempt to put some loft on it at the last minute. The flinch is kind of like
to get it lofted.
Yeah. You know, it's the smart brain thinking, my God, there's no loft on this thing here coming into it. I better flinch it just to get it up in the air. And when you actually explain to people that you know, using the back edge appropriately, you can actually hit anything up to a good few inches behind the ball. But as long as that back edge is interacting smoothly with the ground, you can collect the ball so beautifully. So, you know, one of the things that we have, and it's a metaphor that's been around for a long time. It's not our metaphor, but it really works well, is for anybody, and wintertime's a great time to do this, is with your wedges, just imagine that the back edge of the club is like the wheels of an aeroplane. And basically what you've got is 3 potential landings, with the club. So you could have a crash landing where the leading edge digs into the turf. You can have an aborted landing where the pilot pulls up the wheels, or you can have a smooth landing where the back edge just smoothly interacts with the ground. Now, I would say, I mean, I read something that you put out recently, Tim, it might have even been today, about just observing yourself doing things. Well, one of the best short game exercises that you could ever do, and you can do it at home, you can do it on a mat, you can do it in the garden, is just to take 10 balls and just hit a bunch of shots and just ask yourself, what landing am I getting? Just don't try and do anything. Just think to yourself, okay, right, I'm gonna hit some shots here. Which of the 3 landings did I get? Did I get a crash landing? Did I dig the front edge in? Did I abort the landing, pull the wheels up too quickly? Or did I get a smooth landing? And time again, I've seen it. When you give that player that awareness exercise, and you just say, I don't need to do anything other than tell me what landing you got, they'll go crash landing, aborted, and then all of a sudden, smooth landing. You know, if you could get an absolute rank beginner, and if you said to them, I want you to put your mental attention on the back edge of this golf club, and I want you to see if you can just get that back edge to just brush the ground smoothly. Could you do it? And it's amazing. You can get literally early stage golfers, rank beginners, and they will start to do that really efficiently, really quickly, because we're pretty good at using tools as human beings if the tool is explained to us. You know, we don't have a problem with a nail and a hammer, because it's pretty clear that it's supposed to do that. So, you know, most people can manage that. We're pretty clear on what a toothbrush can do. So we actually don't have too much issue, hopefully, brushing our teeth. But very few golfers have a really clear understanding of what the tool in the hand is actually designed to do. We must be the only sport that we're so detached from the implement in our hand that we're paying attention to almost anything other than that. You know, you guys in Canada, you know, with hockey, you know, people know what a hockey stick is designed to do. You know, even a beginner, I would imagine, makes a reasonable hockey motion. I don't know, but they understand what the tool is designed for. But in golf, we focus on almost anything other than the tool in our hand, and that causes so many problems.
So when you devised the series of books, the Lost Art of Golf series, and you got to the short game, and I think I've asked you this with the other two, but can you tell us what is the lost art of the short game? And is it what you said at the beginning, that people, you know, in the introduction, you reference Ballesteros and people like that were, you know, short game artists. They learned it, you know, through trial and error. Ballesteros famously had that 3-iron on the sand and as a kid and learned all these shots. Is that the art that's lost that we just, because I just know when I was a kid, all my dad's friends and him, they all chipped with different clubs. We didn't have sand wedges, so they would all hit the low bump and run with the 7-iron. They would hit open up their pitching wedge and try and hit a higher shot. But really, when you had clubs that you had to use, is that the art that we've lost, that we don't use the tools in a variety of ways?
I don't need to say anything, Howard. You just answered the question with the question.
Thanks for being with us, Karl.
That's exactly it. What is art? Is the freedom to experiment? Is the freedom to create?
Yeah.
We quote at the beginning of the book, and I think everybody, all of your listeners should treat themselves to look at 2 shots on YouTube. Punch in Seve Ballesteros, Royal Birkdale, 1976.
Yeah,
and treat yourself to the sight of a 19-year-old Spaniard announcing himself onto the world stage at Royal Birkdale on one of the driest summers that we've ever had in the UK. I think it's probably the last dry summer that we did have, actually.
Well, let me just jump in, because 70s, I didn't realize I was in the UK in 2017, and the guy that was driving me referenced 1976 as the greatest summer that you've ever had on the island. It was summer. It was hot all the time.
It was so dry. The government at the end of the summer was so desperate. They'd got people with dowsing sticks and things like that, and they'd got shamans and witch doctors and things like that trying to say prayers and incant to the heavens. Can you imagine that we were praying for rain in the UK? I mean,
of course. But I'm sorry, I interrupted you. That video of Ballesteros in the summer of '76 is unbelievable.
Yeah, so you see Seve as this 19-year-old at Birkdale. I mean, everybody, when he was leading after 3 rounds, Seve talked about it years later, and he said, for the first couple of days when he was on the leaderboard, everybody thought it was his brother Manuel. They didn't realize that it was him. It was Seve announcing himself, and you just see this, incredible swashbuckling. He's hitting it all over the place, but just finding magical ways of making pars and birdies. But coming up the last hole, he'd been in the lead after 3 rounds, but Johnny Miller was a dominant force then in world golf, and he shot 66 in the final round. So Miller was well ahead coming up the last. But Ballesteros, after being literally all over the place, made a bit of a fight back. I think he birdied 16 and maybe eagled 17, something like that. But coming up the last, he knew he needed to make a birdie to tie Jack Nicklaus for second place. There's a par 5 in those days, and he's pulled his second shot left. Now he's then faced with an impossible chip because it was so dry from the left hand, just in the left hand semi-rough. The standard shot that should have been played was just a lob shot over the bunkers and knock it to 20 feet, and then hopefully maybe make the putt. But something, you can see it in his eyes almost. You can see something starts to happen in his imagination. And he sees this incredible shot where he plays this pitch and run, I think, with an 8-iron through a tiny channel between the 2 bunkers, and he kind of feeds it through this channel, and the ball rolls out to 4 feet. And the famous commentator Henry Longus just said, "That is not possible." He knocked the putt in, and he finished with a 4 and finished tied second with Jack Nicklaus. And even Johnny Miller, in his winning speech, actually mentioned that shot. It was, but to me, that was the epitome of an artist, an artist allowing his imagination to create. Seve apparently with his short shots, he said he would see most short shots, and there would be a bunch of movies went up in his head, and then he would just pick one of those movies out, and he would play that movie, and then he would execute the shot relative to the movie that he'd seen in his head. So he reacted to the pictures in his head. And then there's the other one that's worth looking at that we've all seen many times is the famous shot that Tiger played in 2005 at the Masters on 16 when he's hit it long and left, the place that you don't want to go. And was it Curtis Strange came out with a line? He said, "I can't imagine that he can get this ball inside DeMarco," and DeMarco was about 30 feet away. but just watch the video because it's an absolute education. Two things to watch when you're watching Tiger. First thing is to watch his eyes, because if you watch the quietness in his eyes, and he's appearing to sort of track, and you can see him kind of picturing in his mind's eye the landing spot. And then also he seems to be verbalizing. He seems to be verbalizing to him. You can see his lips move. He seems to be verbalizing the shot. So it seems that, you know, he was in a kind of hypnotic state where he was so entranced. He was so entranced by the puzzle that the golf course had set him at that point, that his imagination just ran riot, and he created a shot. And then, you know, culminating with the famous Nike logo just appearing as the ball fell into the hole. You know, the greatest piece of free advertising in your life. Yeah. Greatest piece of free advertising ever.
Yeah. One of the things that's so interesting to me is that I'm sure some of our listeners are thinking like, okay, those are golf gods. You know, they're touched, you know, by the divine to come up with these types of shots. But I think that what is actually possible for people is when you have the presence of mind. And what generally happens for most people is they think about what they should do, getting back to what we talked about earlier, perception, expectations. And what I think what happens with players like we just talked about and other very creative players, it's more like it comes to them. It's more of an allowing, like their mind works on it, but it's not like they're thinking about what's the thing to do here and forcing it and thinking and grinding through it, you know, which is, I hate that word, but it's more of an allowing. In the picture, and in that picture, it came to Seve and he thought, that's the one I'm going to pick. So it's just my kind of way of trying to get across that in this game, it's more of a phrase that Howard uses all the time, allowing the game to come to you rather than trying to force it to happen. I don't know. Does that resonate with you?
It completely resonates, Tim. And you know, we could get into some deep territory, really, I suppose, with this kind of esoteric territory in a way that, you know, it's almost that when you look at true excellence in sport, whether it's a Roger Federer, whether it's a Tiger Woods, a Michael Jordan, you know, a Lewis Hamilton driving a motor car, Alain Prost, and Senna, you know, Pele playing football, it's almost as though that they have channeled something beyond themselves. The mind is receptive enough that if there is out there a deeper intelligence that, you know, many people believe that there is, it's almost something bigger than themselves, isn't it? It's almost that the game gives them a shot to play through an intelligence that, you know, they tap into as a result of the state of the mind that they're in. And I think, you know, yeah, these are the gods of the game, but, you know, for all of us is just to be out there and be quiet enough to allow the shots to emerge, rather than thinking you have to do it this way or that way. And, you know, and I think that's where sometimes people get overcoached in a sense, that you should play this shot this way and you should do it that way. And okay, there might be some parameters that you want to work with, and an understanding of the tools, as we said before, but just allowing your own creativity to just start to kick in, and the joy that you can get from seeing a shot and then producing it. What's the worst that can happen? You make a mess of it, but you learn from that process, but you learn from that freedom.
Will we learn in the lost art of the short game as we come to the last couple of minutes here? I know when people hear about your books or hear about any golf instruction books, no matter how esoteric or how, you know, we talk about gratitude and we talk about being in the moment and the power of now and all that stuff in the game of golf that we resonate with. But ultimately, someone's going to buy this book because they're going to say, I want to have my short game be better. So because it's true, no matter how much we talk about your mind can set you free, if you don't know how to play any shots around the green, it doesn't matter how free you feel in that moment. What would you say to somebody if they said, can I improve my short game if I buy your book?
100% I would. And I hope I don't portray these things as being all about kind of, nicey tree hugging, and we're all going to be in love with the golf course no matter what. I get paid in my job on performance, but what I've found over the years is that the route to performance is more about setting yourself free to perform as opposed to forcing performance. So
For sure.
In answer to the question, yeah, 100%. I think if you can read the book and you gain a really clear understanding of how to use the tool in your hand, and you have some drills, we've got loads of drills in the books that you can go out and try out with, and you do some of the awareness exercises, you will become a better short game player. If you become a better short game player, you're going to make more pars when you miss greens. So if you make more pars when you miss greens, your handicap's going to come down. You'll win some tournaments. So it is a performance-based book, but the route to that performance is perhaps a little bit different than the kind of prescriptive, you need to do it this way because this is my method and my method's better than anybody else's. There's a bit of there's degrees of freedom for you to personalize around some key concepts.
It's such a balance. I remember in one of your DVDs, I don't know how many years ago, if you go all the way into mechanics, that's not gonna you're gonna run into trouble. If you go all the way to complete freedom, so it's a balance, and I think that's what your book does very nicely.
No, that's a great point, Tim. And I think, hang on, Karl. That's a great point that Tim made. There's a balance, but what you said, Karl, too, is that without some technical ideas, that freedom, you can be as in the moment as you want, but if you don't know how to hit that shot, it doesn't matter.
You'll be a happy hacker. If you've got no idea what you're trying to do with the golf club to produce shots, you'll be happy out there. But you cut out the middleman and just walk the dog around the golf course if that's the route you want to go down. This is about becoming better golfers, but a different route to becoming a better golfer. The one that perhaps not the miserable route that many of us have taken, where we've just got lost in swing and technique prison. So we get to a point that we hate the game and we don't go out and play unless we think that the swing is perfect. And
no, exactly. You brought up something that I thought I see it around Europe all the time. I've been there a bunch of times in the last few years, but people bring their dogs everywhere. I think that golf courses, if they wanted to have happier golfers, should rent like therapy labs. On the first hole, you're allowed to take a dog with you, because it's hard to be mad at your golf game when you've got a big furry friend there. They could just they'd be like therapy caddies. Karl, I want to wish you the best, and I hope your health continues to improve. How are things where you live? Where do you live again?
I live in Manchester, which is the kind of middle part of England, in the northwest of England.
And so how's the variant working out there?
In golfing terms, the variant is 25 under par for 4 rounds. It's just going crazy at the moment. Yeah. The figures are just frightening. They're multiplying. The record up until I think it was Wednesday of this week was 40,000 cases in a day. And I think yesterday we had 90,000, and the forecasting it's going to double every day. I mean, the numbers are staggering, really, of what it could be.
And Karl, and Karl, in golf terms, how is Boris Johnson doing in dealing with this?
That's very good.
In golfing terms, Boris Johnson didn't even appear on the first tee.
That's right. In golfing terms, he needs to.
He missed his tee off time. That's
right. He needs to get the book, The Lost Art of Handling a Pandemic. Karl, thank you very much, my friend. The Lost Art of the Short Game is the latest in the series. If you need more information, you can literally Google The Lost Art of Golf. The Short Game book is part of a series that Karl has produced with a very fine professional, Gary Nickel. And always a pleasure having you talk about it on our show, sir.
Yeah, good to see you, Karl. All the best.
Always good to be. Yeah, all the best, chaps. Thanks for having me again.
Okay, bye-bye.
Well, and it won't be the last time, obviously. It's like every couple of months. Oh, yeah, Karl.
Platinum level FOS.
Thanks, pal. Take care and stay well.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
I will. Thank you.
It's funny. Not funny, but it's interesting that as of this weekend, they're making rapid tests available everywhere in the province, including the LCBO. And when I heard that, I thought, is that the most Doug Ford thing ever? Like, how Doug Ford is that? Well, that's right. We can make the test available at the Lick Bow or, I don't know, a rub and tug.
Are they also encouraging you to get a Laker when you're there? Get your test. Make sure you get your...
Exactly. You'll go, all these hipsters are going there. Do you have the test in an IPA? Oh, man. All right. Well, that's great. Always great talking to Karl. I mean, yeah, a lot of things that he says are, very true. That most people just think there's one way to play a shot around the green, but, it gets back to what we've been talking about in terms of, expectations and.
Yeah, and to your point, you can be a Zen monk out there, but if you don't know, and I like the way Karl put, if you don't know how to use the tool,
yep,
you're, happy hacker. I love that. I really noticed that Karl's use of metaphors has really gone through the roof since his heart bobble. It opened up.
That's right. It really opened him up. I mean, you
literally
can be happy. You can be a happy hacker if you have the right one of the things that my friend Paul Henrik has shown me is that, sometimes you don't have to hit the shot if you're uncomfortable with, trying to loft a ball over a bunker to a pin that's in the back left of the green, because that's a difficult shot for everybody. You could hit it to the right over there 30 feet away. I mean, but that's a really hard decision for most men to make.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. But I loved how it was very interesting, how in essence, Karl was connecting with the stuff that we've been talking about through decade.
Well, it's all expectations. Yeah.
Is not to two chip, and, you don't need to try to knock it to within tap in if you have to hit this Herculean shot.
Well, I didn't want to interrupt him at that point, but I've got so many statistics around the green from the rough, from 11 yards or 10 yards on the PGA Tour, from the fairway, from not the rough. Their average is still outside of 4 or 5 feet. It's 6 or 8 feet. And so if you're a 12 handicap and you got a chip shot, you don't have to, stress out. As he said, just get it on the green is a reason, as he, told the example of that guy. Getting it on the green for a lot of people listening is enough. That's job well done. My point is, you don't have to hit the shot just because your friends are there and you think you want to get this. That phrase, being out of position, I think a lot of golfers listening, if you can recognize that you're out of position and play from that point, I think you'll be more successful. You'll be happier too, I think.
Yeah, it's kind of like what my dad would say, take your lumps,
Take your, well, and it's the hardest thing to do.
Yeah.
All those cliches our dad said about, play each one shot at a time and all that, keep the course in front of you, all that stuff is easy to understand. And that's what Fawcett says. That's what I say. It's easy. The simplest thing to understand is what we're talking about. It is the hardest thing to do.
Yeah, the discipline part. That is the hardest part.
And you, I'm sure, can talk to, if I'm playing in a foursome and all three players are on the green and they've got putts for pars, or they've got, they can two putt or whatever, and I'm off the green, I want to be where those guys are. Yeah. But that may not be the best shot at this point. And I think that's the hardest thing to do, is when you're in a group of men and we're constantly comparing ourselves as human beings, but we're also in a game of golf, like they're over there, I want to be over there,
Yeah. And I don't think that's just the province, if you will, of males. I think that with a lot of,
I agree.
With very competitive women, it's the same thing. But it's kind of like, okay, here's Timmy's challenged with this shot. He's got to get up and down over the bunker to a pin cut close, and it's like, no, I'm not doing that.
Well, no, and I'm not saying that women aren't competitive. I'm just saying I think. Not knowing inside a female's mind, other than having daughters, which has helped me not at all, except to know how dumb I am most of the time. I'm just talking about that sensation of, if I'm in front of the green in two, and the pin is back left, and my mates are on the green, something about that situation, we've all been in it. Even if they weren't on the green, it's the desire to make up for the mistake you've made right now, as opposed to going, okay, I'm out of position. I'm on a bare lie. I don't have this shot. Even if I know, even a good player, I may not take that shot, because the one time I did when Paul was with me, it led to disaster in a tournament when he just said to me after the round, you could have just hit it over there. And I never considered it. Not once in that situation when it was happening did I ever consider playing away from the pin and making a bogey. And instead, chaos happened. I made a triple bogey because I thinned it into the bunker. Then I sculled it into a hazard over the green. I chipped up. I made a 25-footer for triple. But the point of it is afterwards I went, oh, yeah, I guess I could have just hit it over there.
Yeah, well, again, that comes back to what Karl was talking about, and we were getting into is in essence having the presence of mind to see the options, as opposed to, oh, this is what I'm supposed to do. I'm supposed to try to get it close. And it's a difficult shot, but I'm going to try it anyways. And having sort of more of the options come to you. And
well, but what you just said too is so true. Like, I know it's a difficult shot, or I'm going to try it anyways. Like I was telling Henrik and I were talking recently, and I remembered a guy asking me toward the end of the season about, all he did all day, every time he got a shot around the greens, he wanted to hit a lob shot or a flop shot. And he said to me something like, how many times a year do you play that shot? I go, none times a year. Like literally. And I said to Paul, I said, I went back in my mind. I played a flop shot none times in a round of golf. Screwed around with it around the greens. I can play a shot. Yeah, I hit a couple of soft lob shots, but not a flop shot. And imagine someone with a 13 handicap, every time they had a chip, this is what they did.
Well, that's what Karl talks about in the beginning of his book is that, and even the professionals, you look on the tour, they all seem to be getting out there 54, 56, 60, and trying to hit this whoop shot. And because that's the thing we're supposed to do, apparently.
Well, and I would say to you, you're right, but next time you're watching golf, just count how many times in a Sunday afternoon when you're watching short game shots, how few times they actually hit the big wide-stanced super flopper. Almost never. Because even those guys know that if it goes wrong, it's leading to a bigger score than they may want at that point. All right. So as I can't remember if we were talking about this on the show or off the show, but anyway, this guy followed me around, and when the tournament, when I played the Senior Am, it was just a very nice fellow named Barron Thompson's there. Barron's an avid player. Hi, Barron. How are you?
Terrific.
I'm trying to describe how you and I met. And before I do, though, had you ever heard our podcast before?
A few years ago, yeah. But since then, I was moving and did other things. So
that's fun. Oh, I'm sorry. Did moving get in the way of you listening to this gold every week?
Absolutely. What the hell's that going on? Okay.
What's going on there, Barron?
I don't know. Everything's falling apart.
I would just take it off the wall if I were you at this point. I don't think it's going to stay up there. He's got a map.
I got a map.
He's tried to decorate his Zoom experience.
That happens to us. That happened to Howard with your old sign before you got it fixed.
Barron, just take it down. You're going to want to take it down because when you look at this later, you're going to think, shit, I should have taken that down.
Okay, let me take it down.
There you go.
So I was playing at Loyalist outside of Kingston. I get to the 9th hole on the last round. And the 9th hole is where there's every day there's a few people there because they're recording your scores after 9 and every 3 holes, in fact. And I see, so I'm used to seeing a crowd of people on the 9th green every day, and I saw a group of people there, and it's a very difficult hole. So I really stopped. I didn't really pay attention. I got into my routine, and I hit probably easily the best shot I hit that day. Excuse me, maybe the best shot I hit in the tournament. And then I get up there, and I see this fellow, Barron, and a few other people were there. And I two-putted for par, which is the only time I made a par in that hole in practice round and 3 rounds. And then Barron said to me, I don't know, you sort of introduced yourself to me. I thought it was because you listened to this show, but how did you know I was there?
From CFNY days, I knew that you were a golfer. And sure enough, this tournament half an hour away from where I live. It's fun. Good players hit golf balls. And I recognized your name in the lineup, so I wanted to have a purpose of going there to see you. And Dan was a Hamilton guy, so.
Dan was the other guy in the group?
Yep, Dan Gagliardi and Scott. Right. And
was Dan the guy whose golf ball I hit on the last hole? Was that him? Yeah,
that's it.
So,
do you really want to revisit this trauma? Or
yeah,
just let it be?
No, I don't mind. So, Barron, we kind of lost you there, but you walked up to me after I putted out. You said, "Do you mind if I walk around with you?" And I said, "No, not at all." Thinking you'd walk around for a hole or two and get bored of the process, but you hung in for the 9 holes. And I talked to you after because I was kind of curious, Barron, because you're a guy that knows the game a bit and you like golf. I was just kind of curious what your perception of me as a player was, because I thought that's somebody watched me play 9 holes of tournament golf, and I was curious how that showed up for you. What your takeaway from watching me go through 9 holes of pretty intense tournament golf for me.
Howard, I had high expectations.
You shouldn't have. My takeaway from the whole thing with you was I thought you'd be a little more game-faced, even though you're a performer and a stand-up comedian and that kind of thing. I just thought you'd kind of have this straight-ahead game face on and not engage the crowd at all, the crowd of me. But yeah, you were quite the gentleman, and you introduced me to the other players on the 10th tee. And, usually everyone's awkward about that sort of thing, and those kind of niceties go by the wayside. But, you stepped up and you did that sort of thing, and you made a joke about me stalking you, and hopefully it wasn't a stalker. And yeah, it was a nice combination of you being competitive, but also cordial and outgoing, and realizing here's a day I'm playing with 2 guys and there's 2 guys watching. You treated the whole thing the way it should have been treated. Interesting.
That's cool.
Somewhat serious when it needed to be, because just before you hit the shot, like you would just, everything else would zone out. You wouldn't zone out. You'd zone into the shot and tune everything else out. And but as soon as you hit the shot, I mean, you're right back to Howard again.
That's cool, because one of the things we've talked about through this show is that ability to kind of step into a shot and to step out. Because if you're fully like focused all the time,
yeah,
you're going to exhaust yourself.
Oh, for sure.
Whereas, so that's really cool. So in terms of what you witnessed as a, Howard he's a tournament player. He's really experienced. He's a damn good player. What did you notice in terms of just how he would kind of step into his process? What were the things that were notable about what you would just witness in terms of him going through his process?
So in between shots, Howard was the comedian. Howard was the outgoing, cordial, friendly guy. But as the shot got closer, the talking got a little less, and then it was game on for a minute or two before the strike, and then afterwards he was right back. So
gotcha.
you could.
It's funny. I'm glad to hear you say that, because sometimes I wonder if I'm, too locked in at times. And having you there, like if you hadn't been there, I sort of still would have been the same. But I just remember one time, I think it was the 16th or 17th hole, 16th maybe, and I hit it close and you were up at the green. I said, "Did you see that, Barron? Are you seeing this?" because, because I was serious golf for me, but having you and I think there was another guys you said that followed us for a few holes, but having you there and I've worked really hard at not grinding in between the shots. Now, you happen to watch me on a day where, I think I was 1 under on the back 9 until, the incident. So I was playing pretty good golf. I was under par. I think my total for the day, I think I was 1 over for the day on the 18th or 2 over, whatever it was. My point is I was playing pretty well. I wasn't playing perfectly, but I was playing pretty well. So maybe I was a little bit looser because of that. But I was just curious about your perception of how serious I took it and how not serious in between shots. Even at that level, even the Ontario Senior Am, in between, I was still trying to enjoy the day. And every time I passed Barron Tim, I felt bad because I couldn't put him in my cart and give him a ride to the next hole because you just can't do that. And I'd say to him, Barron, I can't give you a ride. I'm sorry. Run, Barron, I yelled at him.
Run, Forrest, run.
Run, Barron.
It was pretty easy to watch these guys. And I guess I went in with no expectations, but I kind of thought Howard would be the game face Tiger Woods, not engage anyone, be super serious, but and he wasn't the jokester either all the time. But it was a really nice, mature mix. And, I guess that tournament's a serious tournament. But I mean, in the big scheme of things.
No, exactly.
If you didn't make the cut or you finished first,
It only matters because you say it does. But Barron, and before I let you go, in terms of how the three of us, because all those guys were good players too, the quality of the shots. I mean, it's not like we're, I think I was trying to make the point to you when we spoke after, being a scratch golfer doesn't mean you hit every shot perfectly. You just hit a lot of sort of okay shots. I didn't hit every shot good on that back 9. I hit a few that were a bit off and a few. I just didn't get into any trouble.
Dan was on his way to make a triple or quad, I think on the 17th hole. And he made a great double. Yeah. And that was a big difference between guys like me, average chops, and, someone that knows how to play the game.
That's an interesting phrase. He made a great double. And sometimes you have to. Well, I that's really what I wanted to see, and I appreciate that, Barron, because again, I've never had anyone watch me for 2.5 hours like that.
Yeah, but we can't let this go without diving in at least a little bit into the incident. Barron, what in terms of Howard's demeanor?
Yeah, that few seconds wasn't so great.
And being cordial, how did our man look then?
Okay, that's a great.
All right.
Let's pick the scab off.
No, it's fine. Go ahead.
Well, I'm a journalist by training. I have to ask.
We can't leave it with and swing thought nerds, STDs know that I hit the wrong ball on the last hole and I got a 2-stroke penalty. But you watched it all happen. You watched me hit that second shot, which was awesome. It's par 5. I'm 40 feet in from the flag into just off the green. I'm on my way to making a birdie, shooting even par 73, I think. So what did you see?
Well, there was a lot of chatter when you were over the ball by the green, and I think you called somebody over.
I called
and we're all wondering what's going on. Are you trying to get relief, and get to a position of 5 or 6 feet from the pin based on some sprinkler or something? And I'm thinking, what are you up to? And sure enough, it was the ball in question. So you were very quiet, but you were seething inside.
Oh, yeah.
You were peeved.
You'd see little smoke trails coming out.
Yeah. Not everyone could see the smoke, but it was smoky. And got in the cart, drove back to the area where your drive landed, and just executed another good shot. You didn't stick it 2 feet by the pin, but that's a tough shot anyway. And you finished out, and I thought as a spectator, it was time to go, because no one likes, it's kind of like the athlete that loses the match and he gets interviewed and, well, how'd you feel? How do you think I feel? So yeah, I thought it was time to go.
Well, I didn't get a chance to say goodbye to Barron because I kind of went to my car and I slammed my clubs in the trunk. But I didn't leave. I was going to leave in a fit of, whatever. But I kind of said, what, this is ridiculous. And I went and had a fake beer with the guys. And then I sent Barron a note later saying, listen, man, I'm sorry I didn't see you at the end. Thanks for, watching me. That was great. And
Howard,
yeah.
Did you get your sweater back?
I didn't.
The jacket sweater that you left in the cart? Yeah.
Yeah, the Fairway and Green.
Fairway and Green.
Yeah, I know. It's ridiculous.
Huh.
That's
high value apparel.
At the moment, it didn't seem important. But you know what? I will tell you that it was a great lesson. I was talking about it the other day with somebody, and I was saying, well, actually, it was Paul Gortner and I were talking about it. And I said, oh, yeah, blah, 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 played the wrong ball. He goes, yeah, you'll probably never do that again. I said, yeah, you should see how I marked my ball now. Spirographs and, initials. And anyway, listen, Barron Thompson.
A little caricature of Stan.
That's right, a little picture of you and I. Barron, thank you for popping in here. I hope you're going to have a great Christmas and a wonderful, safe, healthy holiday. And if we're ever back in Kingston, I'm going to hit you up for a round there. We'll go play together and we'll hang out. And now that you've discovered this podcast again and you can listen to it, we'd love for you to be a subscriber and tell your friends.
Even if you move again.
Tim, yeah. Good meeting you, Tim. And
yeah, nice meeting you, Barron. That was fun. All right.
Take care, Howard.
Thank you, my friend. All the best.
Take care. See ya.
Yeah. It's funny. My perception of, I don't know, maybe I don't take it as seriously as I think I do. I mean, I take it very seriously around the ball and sort of more of a, like, I'm able to function and have a conversation. I mean, I don't know how he would have observed me if I was, 4 over or something. I don't know. But he, you know what I mean? Like it's a bit of a false positive because he caught me on a day. I think I was playing pretty well all the way through. I mean, I don't know.
Howard, whenever I play with you, whether you've been playing really good or really bad, you talk.
That's true.
That's part of who you are. And but you also know that as a good player that you have time to focus and you have time to let it go. Coming back to Karl, one of the key things I learned from listening to him years ago was he talks about how you have a limited amount of energy for a round of golf, like mental energy. And it's like an egg timer, and you have to preserve the time. So you come into your shot, like Barron talked about, you settle in, you get focused, do what you need to do, execute, and then you come out of it. And then you come back into the discussion about the Blue Jays, bullpen or the rotation or the Leafs or something. And then you come back into the shot. And that way you preserve that amount of time you need to preserve to keep your energy. Because if you're grinding on every shot and all the time, which a lot of people do, you run out of energy pretty quickly.
You mentioned earlier in the show, you don't like the word grinding, but I think what you mean, because there's grinding in that you're not giving up grinding.
Yes, I agree with that, and I'm all
that
for
type
that.
Of grind. That type of grinding is different than hitting a shot, and then this is what I used to be like. I would hit a shot, and then unless it was perfect, whatever I thought perfect was, I would grind all the way to the next shot, wondering why that shot didn't pull, and then thinking about the par I didn't make. I mean, I was grinding my wheels all the time.
Exactly.
Where now, if a round isn't going and, great or whatever, I will grind out the best score I can and give that. Grinding really means, can you give every shot the kind of attention you give a birdie putt? Meaning, you really stalk it and but because sometimes when we're pissed off at ourselves, we don't give those.
No, I don't.
We don't give the up and down for double bogey the same way we would give the up and down for, like being near a par 5 and 2, trying to get up and down for birdie.
Right. Absolutely. Well, it's interesting. Yet another discussion about Tim's aversion to the word grinding. Members of my University of Guelph golf team, they'll say, Tim, I know you don't like the word grinding. But what I mean is it's this popular perception that we get, I think, from like Azinger on TV is, he's trying so hard and all this. And that's the part that I take issue with, is that whenever we're trying really hard, that's when it generally doesn't work. It's more of being, in the moment, allowing it to happen, stepping in, stepping out. I just think it's kind of like that American version, particularly of someone trying so hard that they have like, beads of blood coming out of their forehead.
Yeah. And I agree with you, but what I think the distinction is, whatever that is, whatever is the opposite of giving up. That's what I think a lot of golfers, and myself was, again, one of the worst I ever met was, you give up because something in your brain says, if I don't try anymore and I shoot that high number, then at least I'll be able to go, well, at least, I really didn't try.
I wasn't trying.
It wasn't really trying, even though no one gives a shit, and it makes you feel bad. And again, I keep bringing up Henrik, because Henrik, we're going on 6 years of being, friends and golf buddies, but also, I sort of started to hang out with him because he was
he's also a mentor. He's a mentor to you.
10 years sober when I met him, and now, we're both further down the road. But one of the things he talked about was, if you make the best score you can make on a day, whatever that score is, you will feel better. That's when I brought up, he says, sometimes you got to put your big boy pants on and just make a double bogey and shut up and accept it, because I could never get my head around that. And, I talked to my older brother yesterday, and he, who's one of the smartest guys I know, was playing with his girlfriend, who's a very good golfer. And he started off double bogey. And he said this to me. He said, part of the reason I was in a funk is because she made a birdie on the first hole. like that's, and I'm sorry, David, if I'm speaking out of school, but those are the kind of things that golfers go through, including giving up. So if grinding is the wrong word, what I would say is, or trying hard all the time, but if you continue to try, period, you will always do your best. As long as you can leave the golf course knowing that you did your best on every shot, your absolute best, which I've never done. I keep that Dr. Larden's scorecard. I've never got above. I think my peak was 95%, but averaged around 90. Tour players, excuse me, average between 95 and 97%, meaning that they are giving their best. It's a practice on every shot that they can. And I think we'd all learn something from that.
Love that. And I love the word you use, practice. See,
Yeah.
It's like, again, coming back to Karl, so much of what we do in our culture, golf culture, all this is that I'll be happy when I get this, when I finally break 190, 80, my handicap goes to this, I win the tournament, I'll be happy. And it's just a promise that just never delivers.
Well, and I think a lot of us are unhappy with our golf selves because we suspect that we're a bit of a, that we give up maybe more than we'd like other people to know. I know I certainly was ashamed of it. It used to make me feel bad about myself. And I've talked to you about this before. I know some guys that are really, really good golfers, plus handicap golfers, that don't like to play tournaments.
Yeah, I would call them fake plus handicap golfers.
Well, whatever it is, they don't like to post a score on the off chance that score won't be in their, comfort handicap zone. But, I was talking to Gortner about shooting 87 at, I think it was 87 or 88 at St. Thomas in the second round this year. And I tried my guts out. I laughed. I said, I forgot I finished par on two of the hardest holes in the course. I finished par to shoot 88. But I can tell you, when I first met you, I would have shot 98 easily.
Yeah, no. Yeah,
I might have not even, because I would have given up way before that. Way before that, I would have just stopped trying. But but there's a satisfaction.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that when people start to play, university golf on a team, is that you give your best all the time. You do not give up, and you not come. Well, I got angry and I got away. No, that doesn't pass. You're on a team, and so it's not a bad approach to take. As most people don't play team golf, but it's just like what you talked about. If you just do your best and you stay with it, because even if you do shoot, a great score, I think there's as much satisfaction from knowing I faced some adversity and I didn't give up on myself, or I didn't allow myself to go into that, resignation and loss of focus. No, I stayed with it. And I think you can get equal amounts of satisfaction, if not more, when you sort of
I agree.
Show up as your best self.
That phrase, you stayed with it. When I'm playing with somebody, and I maybe even said it to you, but I know I've said it dozens of times in a summer. When I play with somebody that is in a bit of trouble on the hole and gets up and down for bogey, or, grinds it out to get whatever score they can, I'll say that. I actually say, way to stay with it. Way to stay with it means that you were engaged on every shot, even after you got into trouble. Because I can promise you, on my lowest rounds of last summer, in my very lowest rounds, I still had moments where there was a problem to be solved. I guess the point I'm trying to make is, shooting 68 is cool, but it still has moments where you're not sure what to do, or you're not sure how it's going to turn out. Maybe less so than when you shoot 78, but still they're there.
Yeah, I'm going to be brief because I know you got to go. I got to go. But I remember being so impressed in a game with a fellow that you met at Glencairn near the end of the season, Tom Nowak. So Tom's about a 2 handicap.
I played with Tom at the last, played one of my last rounds with Tom. Very good, very, very good player.
Yeah, absolutely. And what I remember one time playing with him, and he got in trouble on a hole. But he was, as we were talking about, he was giving his best on every hole, and he got up there on the green, and I was trying to count what it was, and he made about a 4-footer for 10.
Yeah.
And it wasn't like he didn't, get to a point and he just raked it up and ESC in his pocket, give up. No, he did his best on every hole. And I've watched Tom do not quite to 10 a lot, but I've watched him do that. He just stays with it. And I just think that is so, I don't know, that's a wonderful character trait to stay with it.
It really is. And you know what? Also, easy to understand, difficult to do, but also easy to train yourself to do. Just what you said. Like if you're playing with your buddies, and you're on your way to making a big score, you have to ask yourself, what is the, again, what I said to Fawcett a few weeks ago, what is the lowest score I can make from this point? Mm-hmm. And guys like Tom Nowak, and, I think I've gotten really good at that, where I know I'm on my way to making a bigger number than par, but what's the best I can do? Not, oh, fuck it, I'll just, rake it in, and I can't make more than a double. I never have to put more than a double on my scorecard. In fact, I think at my handicap, I'm not even sure you're allowed to make bogeys. But
yeah, I'm laughing because my dad he would call it a put me down for.
Oh yeah, that's right. Put me down for. All right, Tim O'Connor, o'connorgolf.ca, everybody. And of course, the Humble and Fred program continues to go along for another year at humbleandfred.com. I'll be talking to you before Christmas, but not on the show. Merry Christmas to you and your family. I hope all that stuff goes well for you. I hope they find a place at the inn for the baby Jesus and all the other fantastic stories.
You too, man. Right back at you. And
all right, Timmy.
All the best to you and everyone in 2022. Hope
yes, Happy New Year. Yes, the next Swing Thoughts will be the first week of Janvier. So happiest of New Year. Thanks to TaylorMade Golf. We got so many TaylorMade stories for you. And Jonathan Wong Apparel. Good night, everybody.
when he gets up under the lights to play his thing.